still under oath, Mr. Pistorius?
Thank you, my lady.
Mr. Nel?
This, my lady. Mr. Pistorius, if we deal with the scene of the evening of 13 to 14 February, you were only 2 people in the house, am I correct?
That's correct, my lady.
The one person was killed by you, so you're the only remaining person that can tell us what happened in that house.
That's correct, my lady.
And if we, in an attempt to evaluate your relationship, we are reliant on what you say because the other person in this relationship was killed by you. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
But we at least have WhatsApp that you wrote.
That's correct, my lady.
Now, I've had a look at your relationship in a bit more detail in January, February. How would you describe your relationship in January, February of 2013?
I describe my relationship with Reva as good as we were in the foundation phase of our relationship. We were still getting to open up to each other. We were starting to trust each other more and more and learn more about each other. There was a difference between how our relationship was in the beginning of January and a couple of weeks later, towards the end of January, the beginning of February.
I also picked that up. End of January, beginning of February, that's where there were arguments, and those arguments is all about you, what's important to you. Do you want to
I think our relationship.
What's the answer?
Sorry, I think our relationship got stronger, my lady. I've read the messages, the WhatsApp messages. We did have arguments. They weren't arguments that turned into fights or anything like that, but we did have arguments, my lady.
But you will agree with me, apart from I miss you, boo, boo, ba, ba, you never wrote a long message telling her how you felt about her.
Did you say never?
I said so, my lady. Except the response. There's a response
During
to
which months? Which months are you looking at?
January, February, my lady.
My lady, I wasn't very... I was on my phone for a lot of other reasons during the day that I'd rather pick up the phone. If you look at my call logs, how many calls I made to Reva, they far outweigh the amounts of calls she made to me. So I didn't write. Mr. Nell's right. I didn't write any long messages to Reva. I'd prefer to discuss things with her when I saw her or over the phone.
You know, Mr. Pistorius, we did a search on all the WhatsApps. The phrase, I love you, appeared twice in Reva's WhatsApps. Both times, she wrote that to her mother. Never to you, and you never to her. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady. I never got the opportunity to tell Reva that I loved her.
Yes. Now, I'm putting it to you again, and I'll go through that for me there's a recurring theme in your arguments in January and February about things that are important to you and how you react. Will you at least agree that that was what the arguments were about? Will you?
I'm just thinking about the arguments, my lady, that there were things that were important to me. Some of the arguments that we have been read into the record were ways in which I reacted to situations that we were both in. So they were. I can take responsibility for the arguments being my fault, shortcomings on my behalf.
Then I've also gone through your evidence because we now have it available. And I say that your life is just about you. What's important to Oscar? Oscar shouldn't get into trouble. This shouldn't get into the media. You were very concerned about what's good for Oscar.
I was very concerned for both of our futures, my lady.
Let us just, Mr. Pistorius, you started your evidence off in this court with an apology. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
Now, that was more than a year after the event.
That's correct, my lady.
What did you apologize for?
I apologized, if I can remember, for the sorrow that I've caused the Steenkamp family and their friends. I remember apologizing for the emptiness which they feel.
Did you feel better after the apology?
I don't think I could feel better, my lady, but I haven't had the opportunity to apologize to them. So it's something I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I think it was the right thing to do.
You see, Mr. Pistorius, if you were wanting to do it, why would you create a spectacle in court, in the public domain, in the public eye, apologize and not in private? Why would you do that?
My lady, I haven't had the opportunity to meet the Steenkamps. I don't think they've been ready. I also have been struggling to... I don't know what words I thought about saying to them. I don't think half the words I wanted to say to them came out the way that I... If I could have remembered an eloquent speech and apologized to them, I would have done so, but I haven't had the opportunity to.
Again, Mr. Pistorius, you never thought about them. You never thought how they would feel sitting in the public gallery of a court whilst you make an apology. Did you think how they would experience that, or did it only matter about Pistorius, Oscar Pistorius?
I did think about them, my lady.
Did you think how they would feel if you do it whilst they're sitting in public in the glare of everybody, Mr. Pistorius?
I did, my lady.
And what did you think about that?
I thought that it must be very difficult for them, my lady, to look at somebody who's taken their daughter's life and to hear that person apologize.
So why did you go on? Why did you put them through this? Why weren't you humble enough to do it in private? Arrange something. Talk to somebody about it and do it in private. You weren't humble enough to do that.
That's not true, my lady.
Why did you not do it?
My lady, my counsel has been in contact with the Steenkamps legal representatives, and they weren't ready to meet with me, my lady, which I understand. So that's why it was not done.
At court, did you try? You know that other people spoke to Ms. Steenkamp. Did you try and do that?
I didn't think it would be appropriate, my lady, in front of everyone that's here.
And then you do it when the whole world's on you. Every person listening to this court, it was appropriate to do it then. How can that be?
I'm not sure if it was appropriate, my lady, but that was what I thought was best, so that's what I did.
See, Mr. Pistorius, you couldn't face them, because facing them in private would mean that you have to take responsibility, and you don't want to.
My lady, I would love to have the opportunity one day to meet Reva's parents. I never got that opportunity before. I don't think that they would ever want to meet me. I completely understand where they're coming from. It's not that I haven't thought about them.
What did you apologize for? You apologized for a tragedy.
I apologize for their sorrow, for their emptiness. I apologize for taking their daughter's life.
Where's that? I don't see it. You see, if you said, I apologize for killing Reva, I don't see that. You say. It's a record, Melody, page 1358. from lines 18. It starts with, I would like to apologize and say there's a lot of moments, and there has not been a moment since this tragedy happened that I've not thought about your family. I wake up every morning and you're the first people I think of. I think of you, the first people I pray for. I cannot imagine the pain and sorrow and the emptiness that I have caused you and your family. I was simply trying to protect Riva. I can promise that when she went to bed that night, she felt love. The word, I'm sorry I killed her is not there. You're sorry that you have to think of them. You're sorry for their pain and sorrow, but you're not sorry that you killed their daughter. It's not in there.
I'm terribly sorry that I took the life of their daughter, my lady.
Now you say that. Now, Mr. Pistorius, you've been through this WhatsApp messages with your counsel, but I want to take you through them now. That's ZZ. And page, it's a red one there, Mr. Pistorius. Could you open that, sir, in the bottom right corner, 223 of 343? You see page 223? It's the WhatsApp message. You've been through it in your evidence in chief. It's the message of the 27th of January. I'm not going to ask you to read the whole message again. But before I go there, I unfortunately have one more question about the apology. Did you write down your apology on a piece of paper?
No, I didn't, my lady.
Did you not take a piece of paper into the box and wanted to read it?
No, my lady.
Okay. Now, Mr. Pistorius, I'll read it and I'll just ask you questions here and there. I'm not 100% sure why I'm sitting down to type a message to you, but perhaps it says a lot about what's going on here. What was going on there?
My lady, she's talking about what's going on here, about what's going on in our relationship, that if she had to send me a message first, what she's implying is that maybe if she has to send me a message first, maybe that says a lot about our relationship.
You know, or that it's all about you. Today was one of my best friend's engagement, and I wanted to stay longer. I was enjoying myself, but it's over now. You have picked on me incessantly. So, I mean, that's not what happened the previous day. You have picked on me incessantly. What is that about?
I can't remember, my lady.
I know you wouldn't. And you know, Mr. Pistorius, we don't have her here. This is her voice. It's the only voice we have. Picked on her incessantly must mean what it says. Over days in your relationship, you picked on her. Or what does it mean?
I don't think it's... I understand the context, and it says that, my lady, but I had a very close relationship with Riva. There would be people that'll come and testify that I didn't pick on her in any way. I understand what she writes here, but I was good to Reva.
Okay. What I hear, but I'll give you an opportunity to explain. There were people that would come here to say that I never picked on her. Is that what you're saying?
I said there'll be people who will come here who will say that we had a good relationship, my lady.
But that's not what you said. That's why I tested you. What you said is there were people that would be coming here to say that I never picked on her. Because nobody can tell that. That would be between you two.
I never picked on her, my lady.
So she lied.
I don't think she lied,
She
my
must have. If you never picked on her and she put it there, Reva lied.
My lady, when Reva sent me this message, her feelings were hurt. She said other things in this message. Yeah, she said, sometimes I get scared of you. She said, you have picked on me incessantly. She's mentioned here where I got short with her. When in this message, she was obviously upset, and she was upset that I hadn't contacted her first. So I understand that's what she said.
But I hear what you're saying, Mr. Pistorius. I can also read this. What we have to tell each other now is if she would say, yeah, you have picked on me incessantly since you got back from Cape Town. That is untrue. Am I right?
I don't feel like I picked on her incessantly, my lady. I feel like maybe we were having a rough time in our relationship, but...
Mr. Pistorius, with the utmost respect, I never asked you what you feel like. I said, that must be untrue. Am I right, Mr. Pistorius? Answer that question. That's the only question I want you to answer.
My lady, Mr. Nall's right.
I didn't hear that.
He's right, my lady. I didn't pick on her incessantly.
That was untrue. Okay?
That's correct.
Okay. And I understand that you're sick, but it's nasty. With the nasty, you say, do you agree with me? She's referring to the picking on her.
I agree, my lady.
So that also is untrue, because that now refers to the picking. So we've got two things where she's lied. Yesterday wasn't nice for either of us, but we managed to pull through and communicate well enough to show our care for each other is greater than the drama that attacked us. What would that drama be?
I don't recall, my lady. I think the night before we were at... if I can go back, I can maybe put it in context, but I'm not sure what we were doing the night before.
I was not flirting with anyone today. You must have said that she was flirting with someone.
I did, my lady.
Okay, you said she was flirting. So you what did you tell her? What did you say to her?
Well, we had an argument at the place before we left, before she wrote this message to me. I said to her that I felt that she was flirting with the gentleman she was talking to, and made me upset. I guess a part of me was a little bit jealous or insecure, and so I said to her that I felt that she was flirting with him, and it had hurt my feelings. So this is the premises of this message that she sent me. We were driving and I dropped her off. There were other people in the car, so we couldn't really speak, and I thought that afternoon I'd rather just let it cool off, and I'd talk to her later in the day. And then she sent me this message first. So she was just saying here, I was not flirting with anyone today. I did think that she was, but I understood after this in the messages that we'd sent that she explained who the person was, and after that we moved on. After
that, we now know that you accused her of flirting with someone. I feel sick that you suggested that, and that you made a scene at the table and made us leave early. So you made a public scene. What was that about?
My lady, we left this engagement party whilst most of the people were leaving. I didn't know Reva wanted to stay later. She knew that I had training that afternoon and that I had to go for lunch. She wanted to spend more time. This was Mr. Fresco's engagement party. She says, in the beginning of her message here, she says, today was one of my best friend's engagements. He was one of my closest friends as well, my lady. It was both of our friends. When she sent this message to me, I understand that there are many points here where her back's up against the wall and she takes offense to what I said. I'm not saying that she's lying in everything that she said here. I did think that she was flirting with someone. We can go through the whole message and we can...
We're going to.
I can explain... Well, I can try and explain.
No, Mr. Don't explain. Please let us rather today ask questions and get answers. Is that okay?
Yes, my lady.
Okay. Because I already got one answer. You said, I had to go to training. She knew I had to go to lunch. So it's all about I. It's all about Mr. Pistorius. She knew. Why did she not run? Is that what you mean? That's what she's trying to say. And you agree. I had to go to training. I had to go to lunch. It's about you.
Well, lady, that I had things that I needed to do that day. I don't understand what Mr. Null means when he says that why didn't she have to go run? I had plans that day. It was a Saturday, if I remember correctly. I've got training on a Saturday, usually in the morning. I postponed it to the afternoon, and I had plans that I needed to attend.
Thank you. I now have 3 eyes. I had training, I had to go to lunch, I had plans. What was the scene about? What scene did... Or, let us say that's untrue again. We'll mark all the untruths, no problem.
No, that was true. There was, if you read further down the message, she says that she was tickling my neck or my hair, and I was agitated, and that was what she interpreted in making a scene.
Okay. So you brushed her off in public.
That's correct, my lady.
Okay. Then we go on. I am terribly disappointed in how the day ended and how you left me. That is important. You just dropped her off and left. You didn't spend time there and try and resolve this. You dropped her off and you left.
That's correct, my lady.
Was it not important enough for you to do? To sort it out?
My lady, we did sort it out. It wasn't that it was such a big issue that it wasn't going to be resolved. It wasn't that this was the end of our relationship. I dropped her off because she had a friend with her. It wasn't the time for us to talk. I had plans later in the day. I don't know if she had plans, but I wish I did stay and sort things out with her then.
Again, I had plans. It wasn't important. It wasn't a big issue. But that big issue must have only been for you. Because clearly, it was a big issue for her. Am I right? Because she sat down and wrote this WhatsApp. It was a big issue for her.
It was a big issue for her, my lady, but if you look to the next message, it says, please let me know when I can call you. I did want to resolve it. It wasn't that I just let her write this message and didn't want to communicate with her.
No, but Mr. Pistorius, please, we've been through this yesterday. Listen to the questions and we answer those questions. We're busy with this. We'll get to all those things. Now, let us just carry on. I'll just use whatever you said as an answer. We are living a double standard relationship where you can be mad about how I deal with stuff, when you are very quick to act cold and offish when you're unhappy. That wasn't the first instance that she spoke about, this double standard. It's been a double standard throughout your relationship, if I read it.
think this is the first time she mentioned double standard, my lady, but it implies that she feels that that is sometimes how our relationship was.
Was it like that, or was she wrong?
I think we were very different people, my lady. I was maybe a bit more sensitive towards some things, and maybe she didn't speak to me when something was hurting her, and it made her feel like there were double standards in the relationship.
So at least she was correct there.
She was correct there, my lady.
Every 5 seconds I hear how you dated another chick. You really have dated a lot of people, yet you get upset if I mention one funny story with a long-term boyfriend. She's correct there?
That's correct, my lady.
I do everything to make you happy and to not say anything to rock the boat with you, saying that it's all about you.
I think she's talking about herself there, my lady. She says, I do everything to make you happy, talking about herself, what she does for me.
Yeah, but it's for you.
That's correct, my lady.
But then she's saying that's what she's doing. She's doing everything to make you happy, to make Oscar happy. And then she said, you do everything to throw tantrums in front of people. Now tell me about that tantrum.
My lady, I'd have never thrown a tantrum in front of other people. I've maybe brushed Reva off at that function. Maybe at another time when we were at Sports Awards, her and I, we had a disagreement where I explained where we left. I think she was feeling at the time when she wrote this message, she was feeling upset, and she exaggerated on some of the things that she said. So,
yeah, no. Again, we can't ask her, but we can say to the court that according to you, she is lying. You've never thrown a tantrum in front of people. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say she's lying, my lady. I just said there was an exaggeration.
Exaggeration by her, because you've never thrown a tantrum. I've been upset by you for 2 days now.
My lady, I never said I've never thrown a tantrum, but I'm saying you do this in the context of this message. She said you do everything to throw tantrums in front of people. That hadn't happened, so all I'm saying is that was an exaggeration. I didn't say that I've never thrown a tantrum before.
You see, you did, sir. You did. Everybody taking notes in this court would tell you that that's what you said. When I put it to you, you said, I've never thrown a tantrum in front of people before. That's what you said.
Then I correct myself. I'm sorry, my lady, that's not what I meant.
You know, I could be ruthless and say that you lied and now you're fixing up a lie. But please, I don't want to be like that.
And you can't.
Listen to the question.
You can't in any event.
Yes, but listen to the questions and answer them. Don't answer whatever you want to, because you said, I've never thrown a tantrum in front of people. That's what you said. I'm testing your version. That must have been a lie then. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Was Mr. No asking me a question, my lady?
Yes. Why did you say you never throw tantrums in front of people?
I said if I had said that, I don't remember saying it, and I'd like to correct myself. I hadn't thrown a tantrum in front of people with Reva, but I understood it that he said that I'd never thrown a tantrum in my life. And for that I wanted to correct it.
I've been upset with you for 2 days now. I'm so upset I left Darren's party early. So upset. Can't get that day back. I'm scared of you sometimes. Why would she be scared of you?
I think she's scared of the feelings that she has for me and the way that I brushed her off.
Just say that again. She's scared of what?
I think she was scared of the feelings that she had for me, my lady. She says, I'm scared of you sometimes and how you snap at me and of how you will react to me. She's obviously scared of the way that I react to things she does at times.
Yeah, so she's not scared about feelings, she's scared about how you react to what she does. That is what she's scared about. Why? Why would she be scared?
Because
What would you do?
it would hurt her feelings about the way I'd react, my lady.
Shout at her? Scream at her?
No, I never shouted or screamed at her. I think it's the way in which the situation, she said, I'm scared of you sometimes and how you snap at me.
But you've screamed at Samantha Taylor before.
I don't ever remember screaming at Samantha Taylor, my lady. I screamed at one of her friends one day who was at my house. We were in the Cape, and I never screamed at Miss Taylor.
But you've heard her evidence. She said you screamed at her on various occasions.
I understand that, my lady.
And she was never tasked about that. Why not?
I don't understand Mr. Null's question. I'm sorry.
Mr. Roo never said to her she's lying. It never happened.
My lady, there were many things in Miss Taylor's evidence that were lies that I don't think Mr. Roo could keep up with what was getting said there. So I don't know I can't remember if he did or if he didn't deal with.
He didn't. Why did you not correct it?
My lady, I'm sitting behind Mr. Null, behind Mr. Roo and Mr. Aldwych. When he was doing the cross-examination of Miss Taylor, I don't have direct communication with him. I don't know why he didn't bring it up, my lady.
Unfortunately, I will stand still about 5 minutes on this. You were very active during the state's case, sending notes to your lawyers and so forth. Am I correct? When you heard something, you would write a note and pass it forward. That happened on various occasions. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
So whenever there was a difficulty and you wanted something on the record, you would write the note and pass it on to your lawyer.
Not necessarily if I wanted something on the record, my lady. If there was information that was not true that was being told, or information that I felt that they needed to have more understanding of, which I wasn't sure if they remembered, then I wrote it forward. It went to Mr. Weber, and Mr. Weber then decided to send it forward or not. At times I think he didn't want to distract Mr. Aldwych or Mr. Roo, and many of the notes he didn't send forward.
Did you send a note about Samantha Taylor lying about all the shouting and screaming at her?
I don't recall, my lady.
But why wouldn't you have? It was about screaming. She said that. Why would she not be cross-examined on that? It is significant what she said. Do you know why it wasn't?
I can't explain. I don't know if I did write a note up, my lady. I don't know if the question was put to her or if it wasn't put to her.
I put it to you, it wasn't put to her, and it's because it was true. Otherwise, Mr. Roo would have cross-examined her up and down on the screams.
My lady, I never screamed at Miss Taylor. I've read her statements. There's very little truth in it, and I don't remember if I wrote a letter or a message up to Mr. Weber, and if I did, I don't know if he passed it forward.
But again, this is not your mistake. You told whoever wanted to know that you never screamed at her. You told your legal team it's their fault that it wasn't put.
I don't remember, my lady.
You see, it was such significant evidence about your character. When she said you screamed at her, she heard you screaming on lots of occasions, at her and at her friends. Why was that not corrected?
My lady, if I screamed at her, I would have said so. I screamed at her friend. Her friend was drunk and disorderly at a get-together that I had, and I asked her to leave. I did scream at her. If I'd screamed at Miss Taylor, I would say so, but I've never screamed at Miss Taylor. or shouted at her.
Let us just carry on. I've made the point. I'm scared of you sometimes and how you snap at me and how you will react to me. You make me happy 90% of the time, and I think we're amazing together, but I'm not some other bitch you may now trying to kill your vibe. You may know trying to kill your vibe. I'm the girl who let go with you even when I was scared out of my mind to. I'm the girl who fell in love with you and wanted to tell you this weekend. That is a very significant issue, isn't it?
It is, my lady.
And you never followed that up in your WhatsApp.
I followed it up, my lady. If you look at the very next message, it says, please let me know when I can call you.
But then she didn't want to talk to you. Am I right?
I don't remember, my lady.
Because you replied. Just turn the page. We'll get there. I just want to tell you. You replied. And in your reply, this significant issue, I wanted to tell you that I love you. Wasn't met with a response, I love you, Reva, and anything like that.
My lady, I would never want to tell anybody over a text message for the first time that I love them. The next message I wrote says, I want to talk to you and I want to sort this out. That's how it starts.
You see, I understand what you're saying. But what is significant, Mr. Pistorius?
You're whispering again.
Am I whispering? I apologize.
Yes.
I understand what you say. But it's significant. She writes it. I'm the girl who fell in love with you and wanted to tell you this weekend. Whatever you did in the past about rather talk to her or write a message to her, wasn't this the one significant event in your relationship? She wanted to tell you that she loved you.
It was very significant.
Why did you not deal with that? You didn't care.
It's not true, my lady.
You see, Mr. Pistorius, you, if you cared, would have dealt with it. I'll get to this message. There's 3 lines in this message about perhaps I'm wrong, but then it's about how wrong she was. And that is why you never replied. It's because it's all about Mr. Pistorius. That was what your relationship was about.
It's not true, my lady.
The last question. The last one. If I now ask you if you dealt with this, you'll tell me you did, because I cannot test it. But did you deal with this? The fact that she wanted to tell you that she loved you?
I was extremely upset that if that was what she wrote when I read that message, I was extremely upset that for the first time she'd mentioned love to me. And she said that she wanted to tell me that weekend. I was upset then at that point of reading the message. It obviously hurt me that I thought that, geez, this is the first time that she's mentioned love to me. And this was the weekend in which she wanted to tell me. And if you read the next message, it says, I want to sort things out. I want to make things work. I wanted us to be in a loving relationship. I wanted her to be able to tell me she loved me.
We'll get there. We'll get there, Mr. Pistorius. We'll get there. But I'm also the girl that gets sidestepped when you're in a shit mood. I'm sure you'll agree that if you were in a bad mood, you would do that.
I'm not sure what she means by sidestep, my lady. If I'm in a bad mood, it's usually after training. I'm exhausted. I haven't eaten properly for weeks at a time, and I usually go to sleep. So if that's what she means by sidesteps, by getting ignored or her not being used to being replies being sent immediately, then that's what I can deduct from that.
Good. When I feel you think you have me, so why try anymore? That is significant. It indicates you tried before. Now you have me. Now you're not trying anymore. That's what she's telling you.
Sorry, my lady, I've lost my place here.
No problem. You see, it's just, we dealt with I'm the girl who fell in love with you and wanted to tell you the weekend. Then there's another sentence about your shit mood. Then, when I feel, you think you have me. So why try anymore? Now my inference is, you're not trying anymore. You tried before, now you have her, now you're not trying anymore. And that is the state of your relationship on 26 January.
I think that's what she meant, my lady. She said there, if you take the sentence out, that's what she said. It says, when I feel you think you have me, so why try anymore?
But she was wrong.
Maybe that's how she felt at the time, my lady.
You made her feel like that.
That is, she would have felt that way because of the way I made her feel, my lady.
So let us just, this is significant. So, at least in Reva's mind, on the 27th of January, that is how she felt about your relationship. Which wasn't good.
Not on the 26th, my lady, but at that time, on the 26th, we sorted out our
We'll get to sorting
differences later in the day, so it wouldn't be the whole day of the 26th. It was at the time after we had...
Okay, no, we'll deal with sorting out. I get snapped at, told my accents and voices are annoying. That's terrible. Did you tell her that the accent and the voices were annoying?
I did, my lady.
Why? What was that about?
If I remember correctly, my lady, she was putting on an accent the day before for a role of some sort that she was preparing for, and the day before we'd had a meal together and we were having a serious conversation about something, and it was about or the house that I was buying, and she was talking in the accent the whole time, and it annoyed me, and I asked her not to do it, and it wasn't right of me to have asked her not to. And at the time, when she wrote you, I get snapped at and told my accents and voices are annoying. She obviously took offense to it.
But I understand, but what is significant for me is Oscar, was talking about my house, and she was putting up these voices. And it's important for me that she listens to me. Isn't that what happened? She's doing voices and accents, but your house is important to you. What is she doing? Is that what I can infer from this?
That's correct, my lady.
It's again about me, Oscar. I touch your neck to show you I care. You tell me to stop. That happened?
I explained this just now, my lady. That was after I thought Reva was flirting with the person. I went and I sat at the table, and Reva came up to me. We were sitting at the table, and she started stroking my neck, and I pulled my neck away. So that's what that sentence is referring to.
Stop chewing gum. So you were strong enough in that relationship to tell Reva, stop your voices, stop your accent, stop chewing gum. Were you?
It wasn't on that day that I told her to stop chewing gum.
Why
And
did you tell her?
I didn't ever tell her to stop chewing gum, my lady. We were at a function, and I'd been reprimanded by my management in the past for chewing gum on camera, and I said to Reva, she was chewing gum as we came into an event. This wasn't pertaining to that day. And I said in a nice way, I said, Angel, don't chew gum, it doesn't look good on camera. And this is where she brought it into context, stop chewing gum. So it's not that I snapped at her on this day and said to her, stop chewing gum.
When we started, I said, all we have is a voice in terms of what she wrote. So You can say anything, and we can't ask her, but we can work on your answers. So again, she was walking with me, Oscar. She was chewing gum. That wasn't good. Not good for you, your image.
That's not what I said, my lady.
What
I
did you
said
say?
I'd been told in the past that it doesn't look good on camera. I was concerned about how she would look on camera if she was chewing gum. So it didn't have anything to do with me. We didn't even do our interviews together that night.
Don't do this. Do that. You don't want to hear stuff. Cut me off. Your endorsements, and this is important. What I'm saying, she's saying. Your endorsements, your reputation, your impression of something innocent, blown out of proportion and fucked up a special David. Everything that was important to you, everything that's important to you, messed up her day. You agree with it? What's important to her didn't care, didn't matter.
That is how she interpreted it, my lady.
And she was right in interpreting it like that.
Yeah, she was upset, and that's how she interpreted my lady. She's right.
Was she right? Okay, you said she was right.
Yes, she was, my lady.
I'm sorry if you truly felt I was hitting on my friend Sam's husband, and I'm sorry that you think that little of me. From the outside, I think it looks like we are a struggle. Maybe that's what we are. I just want to love and be loved, be happy and make someone so happy. Maybe we can't do that to each other, because right now, you aren't happy, and I'm certainly very unhappy and sad. On that day, when she wrote that, that was the status of your relationship.
That's correct, my lady. She says that from the outside, I think it looks like we are a struggle, but maybe that's what we are. At that time, she was doubting our relationship, so that's what she said. Before I move on, in what you did by criticizing her accent, by brushing her off when she touched your neck, tell her to stop. When you told her to stop chewing gum, those were experienced by her at least as humiliating, that you were humiliating her. Am I right? Especially in public. I'm not sure how she interpreted it, my lady, if it was humiliating or if it upset her, but it did definitely make her not... It definitely made her unhappy. I don't know in which way. I don't think by me telling her to stop chewing gum it would have humiliated her. I was trying to help her, but she obviously took offense to it. So,
and where she touched your neck in public and you brushed her off in front of people, would that be a humiliating experience for her?
I think that would have, my lady.
Okay. But now let us see. You now wanted to talk to her. Said, please let me know when I can call you.
That's correct, my lady.
But you then replied in a WhatsApp.
That's correct, my lady.
Now this is a very interesting WhatsApp. I want to talk to you. I want to sort this out. I don't want to have anything less than amazing for you and I. I'm sorry for the things I say without thinking and for taking offense to some of your actions. We dealt with that. The fact that I'm tired and sick isn't an excuse. I was upset that you just left me after we got food to go talk to a guy, and I was standing tight behind you, watching you touch his arm and ignore me. When I spoke up, you introduced me, which you could have done, but when I left you, you just kept on chatting to him, when clearly I was upset. You wanted her to leave with you, to go with you, not talk to him.
I didn't mind her talking to him, my lady, but I didn't feel like I was part of the conversation. I didn't know who the person was. And before before I was introduced, or I introduced myself to him, the conversation didn't include me, and Reva and I had been speaking from when we got food. We were walking back to the table to sit with the rest of the people that were at our table, and we stood there for a couple of minutes, and the conversation was between Reva and this person. It wasn't as if I was there, so I left and I went and sat down and began eating my food.
But again, you were upset because you were excluded from this conversation.
That's correct.
You wanted to be part of it.
Yes, I would have loved to have been part of the conversation.
I asked Martin to put on the Kendrick Lima album in the car and don't know it. Granted that it was a shut song, but you could have just leaned forward and whispered in my ear. Again, Reva, you are wrong. Why did you not introduce me? So she was at fault. Remember, you're replying to her. You're saying, you at fault, Reva. You never introduced me to the man. Am I right?
I can't find a place here where it says that she's at fault, my lady. What I said in the context that we're reading now is that I asked Martin to put on a CD in the car.
No.
And I didn't know the CD. I said, and I take responsibility. I said, granted, it was a shut song.
No, let us just deal with, before I get there, in this whole incident with the man that she was talking to, I read this WhatsApp from you saying, I was upset that you left me, Reva, you wrong. I'm upset, but I was upset because of what you did. You left me. After we got food.
1 minute, I'm not sure where you are now.
I apologize, the third line. It's page 224, my lady.
Yes, we've got the page.
Yeah. It's a third line. I was upset that you just left me after we got food.
Yes, I see that now.
You see, the first two lines you say, I'm sorry, I'm tired. It's not an excuse, but then you say, I was upset that you left me after we got food to go talk to a guy. I was standing tight behind you, watching you touch his arm and ignore me. And when I spoke up, you introduced me, which you could have done. But when I left, you just kept on. I read it, but please tell me. I read it, you're blaming her for the fact that you're upset. She did wrong. She never introduced you. She should have dealt with the situation differently. She was wrong.
I'm not saying she was wrong, my lady, but what this says here is that I was upset. I think that she could have introduced me. By the fact that she didn't introduce me made me upset. That's what this whole argument was about.
I agree. But she was wrong in not introducing you. You see, you're replying to her. And immediately you're blaming her for what happened.
Well,
you blame her. She should have introduced you.
Well, lady, if somebody's with me and I am talking to somebody I know, then I feel like it's my responsibility to do an introduction. That's common courtesy, and I did feel that the way she was talking to this person, she obviously knew him very well. I didn't know how she knew him, and my feelings were hurt, so I felt that she could have just introduced me to him.
You see, again, I'm just repeat the question. You're blaming her. That's all I'm saying. You're blaming her for what happened. She should have introduced you. She was wrong.
That's correct, my lady. That's
so
what
you're
I'm
blaming
saying.
her. That's all I want to know.
That's what I'm saying, my lady.
Then, I asked Martin to put on the Kendrick Lima album in the car and don't know it. Granted, it was a shut song. But now we're blaming her again. You could have just leaned forward and whispered in my ear to change it. See? So you're blaming her. Said, why did you not do that? You're replying to her unhappiness, but you're blaming her.
I said, yeah, granted it wasn't a good song of choice, my lady. I said that too, but the way I was describing it here, it was such a small incident that granted it wasn't a nice song. I wasn't listening to the words of it. I didn't know the album. And if it was upsetting her, because that was one of the things she was speaking to me about in the car, that it was the song upset her. the words of the song. I don't remember what they were, but that was this thing. It was an album that my friend Martin had brought. I asked him to put it on. I liked some of the songs on the album. I don't know the album. I said, yeah, granted, the song that she got upset to, it wasn't. I said, yeah, granted, it wasn't a nice song. I take responsibility for that. But I said, if it was I didn't even pick it up, that it was such a small thing that she could have just leaned forward and whispered in my ear to change it.
Yeah, again, why did she not do it? You blame her. You said, why did you not whisper in my ear? Why did you not give me attention? Whisper in my ear. You're blaming her for that incident in the car as well, saying, you were wrong, you could have fixed it.
I didn't say that, my lady. I said you could have.
Okay.
Meaning it could have been an option to...
What would the other options be? She tried the other option, saying, I don't like the song. What other options could there have been? It's interesting. You wanted her to lean over, give me all the attention, I'm Oscar, and whisper in my ear.
My lady, it never says here that she said she didn't like the song. It was only later in the day that when I dropped her off, she mentioned the song. She could have leaned forward and asked Martin to change it.
No, you see, if Mr. Pistorius, if you said in your... Because what's important, you're replying to her heartfelt WhatsApp, am I right? That's what you're doing.
That's correct, my lady.
Okay. Now, it would have been different if you said, why did you not ask for it to be changed? You said, you could have just leaned forward and whispered in my ear. That's what you wanted her to do. You blame her for not having done that.
My lady, in the way that Mr. Nell reads it, that's exactly how I intended it, in a soft manner, but you could have just whispered in my ear to change it. That's all I meant by it. It wasn't that I was attacking her and telling her she should have taken control of it.
I had to drive to pick up your friend. That's her friend. And that is the reason why you were late. You had to pick up her friend.
That's correct.
You're blaming her for it because it's her friend.
Sorry, I took you back.
I was 30 minutes late.
Hold on, miss. Just take a seat, please. Just take a seat.
Oh,
Let me take a seat. What's going on? What was that noise?
Maybe it was the attorney's cell phone that he tried to work something, I don't know, and it went off, but it switched off. I apologize for that.
Yes, but the attorney is there. He can stand up and apologize for himself.
Sorry, man, I just wanted to check the time and it went off. Apologize. Switched off.
I'll accept it. Mr. Nell?
My lady.
Yes, please.
Let us then. So we were there with it was her friend. You had to drive to pick up her friend. We're upset with that.
I wasn't upset by it, my lady. It did. When she was talking about the context of her previous message, she said that she wanted to spend the day with Darren and spend a bit more time there. But just as much as we were supposed to be there at a certain time, but we were late because of her friend. So I mentioned that in respect to her saying we had to leave early. We didn't leave early. There were many cars leaving that drove past us whilst we were leaving. But why I said that was to show that we had arrived there late as well. It wasn't just my fault that we had to leave early. In the same light, I understood that I was there late as well. It wasn't that we just had to leave because of my accord early. We arrived late there because we had to pick one of her friends up who has a car, who doesn't stay far away, but we had to wait for her whilst, for some reason, and that was time that we could have been spending at the event with the people that she wanted to spend the day with.
Again, you're replying to a heartfelt WhatsApp in the best possible way, saying, I'm not at fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's Gina's fault. The fact that we have to pick up your friend. It's not all, let's do it the best we can for you. It's not all my fault. Is that what you're trying to say? Again. Am I right?
I said I was 30 minutes late, and I know you don't like it when I drive fast, but then you should have asked Gina to drive herself. So what I'm saying is that on both sides, there were plans that didn't go according to plan in the day. I understand she wanted to stay later. I couldn't stay later. I understand she would have wanted to be there earlier, but we couldn't get there earlier. So that would be correct, what Mr. Niles putting to it.
And what is very significant, if you don't like it, you should have asked Gina to drive.
It doesn't say that, my lady. It says, then you should have asked Gina to drive herself.
Yeah. Again, what I'm getting at, and it will be my argument, so I want to tell you now. The first 3 lines of this response is, I'm sorry, but from there on, it's you blaming her. And definitely not blaming yourself.
That's incorrect, my lady. At the end, the very last sentences, it says, I know you were just trying to show me love. I had a headache, and I should have spoken to you softly. I'm sorry for asking you to not put on an accent last night.
Okay, no, there you're right. The first 3 lines and the last 3 lines, but in between, you're blaming her.
My lady, I think any argument that one has is a result of 2 people disagreeing. So there would be points that I took responsibility for here, and there would be points that I was offended by, and we were trying to come to a resolution, which we did in the very next message.
You see, the issue is, it's all about you. That's what she said. And you exhibited it in your response. That it shows in your response that she was right. It's all about you.
My lady, in my response, I said we were trying to sort things out. I didn't say I was trying to sort things out.
Okay, that's your response. It's fine. Let's just carry on. Then you say, when we left, I was starving. The only good I'd had was a tiny wrap, and everyone was leaving for lunch. I'm sorry I wanted to go, but I was hungry and upset. And although you knew it, it wasn't like you came to chat to me when I left the table. Again, I'm sorry, but you're also to blame. I was upset when I left you. I've got a line through. When I said, because I thought you were coming to me, I'm sorry I asked you to stop tapping my neck yesterday. So, I'm putting to you that is what we have here. You first apologize, then blame her, and then you apologize again. So you blame. That was what your relationship was about.
My lady, in the middle of the message where Mr. Niles just read, I'm sorry I wanted to go, but I was hungry and upset. That message would read exactly the same if you said, I'm sorry I wanted to go, I was hungry and upset. I wasn't trying to shed the blame onto somebody. I was trying to shed light onto the situation. So I did apologize in the middle of the message as well. I understand that towards the end of the message, in the beginning I apologized. I understand at times in the message I needed to explain why I'd felt a certain way. This relationship was only between myself and Reva, so at certain times I didn't feel like I was in the wrong, and at certain times I felt that she was in the wrong, and vice versa. In her message, she felt that I was in the wrong, and at other times she felt that she wasn't in the wrong. That's what an argument is about. So there is a back and forth between any message where there's an argument.
You see, there's an interesting aspect, and that is that, which I forgot. My lady, I have to go back. I didn't know that. I got a note. I don't know Kendrick Lamar. But what song are we talking about?
As I said, my lady, I don't remember the album.
Isn't it Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe? Isn't that the song?
I have no idea, my lady.
Because that fits into her WhatsApp. Which is, I'm not some bitch that want to kill your vibe. Because it doesn't make sense when I read it here. And that was the song you were playing.
I'm not even sure if that is a song of Kendrick Lamar, my lady. I don't remember the album. I don't remember that song. So it could be. Reva, obviously, if that was the song that was playing, that's why Reva made context to it. That's why I wouldn't have been able to make context to that song. If that was what she was speaking about, then yes, it would have been that song if that artist sings a song by that name. And if the title of that song's, if those words are spoken in the song, then I'm sure she took offense to it.
And rightly so.
And
After what happened at that party, if you put on a song, "Bitch, don't kill my vibe," anybody would have taken offense to that.
I'm sure they would have, my lady, but I didn't put that song on. I asked Martin Reading to put the album on.
And you never listened to it. And we can't ask her really what happened.
I did listen to it, my lady. What I'm saying is I don't remember what song was playing at that time.
Mr. Pistorius, let us deal with the WhatsApp at page 301 of 343. Do you have it?
I do, my lady.
I like to believe that I make you proud when I attend these kinds of functions with you. I present myself well and can converse with others while you're off busy chatting to fans and friends. I also knew people here tonight, and whilst you were having 1 or 2 pics taken, I was saying goodbye to people in my industry, and Fix wanted a photo with me. I was just being cordial by saying goodbye whilst you were busy. If I make an inference, she's saying you never gave attention to what she was doing and her interest at that point.
That is what I testified, my lady. At that point, I was taking photos and she was speaking to friends.
And you blamed her for it. She was wrong. Am I right? She was wrong. She should not have done it.
I didn't blame her anywhere for that, my lady.
Sitting where you're sitting, she was wrong, isn't it? Your evidence yesterday was, or the day before, you wanted to leave, and she then started talking, and you had to stay about 45 minutes late. You blamed her.
Yes, that's correct, my lady.
That was what the fight was about.
That's correct, my lady.
I completely understood your desperation to leave and thought I would be helping you by getting to the exit before you, because I can't rush in the heels I was wearing. I thought it would make a difference in us getting out without you being harassed anymore. I didn't think you would criticize me for doing that, especially not so loudly so that others could hear. If I read your evidence, you're saying that that's untrue. You didn't do that where others could hear.
That's incorrect, my lady. If you read my evidence, I said that somebody did hear us. It was a friend of mine in the parking lot on the way to the car that heard us.
And that's the only person?
Well, him and his partner, my lady.
Who were they?
I don't remember, my lady. They were a friend of mine that swam. Mr. Lyndon Ferns, my lady. And
okay.
I forget his
that's fine.
Partner's name.
But that is now the second time in 2 weeks that you criticized her in front of others, or you brushed her off in front of others, and here you criticized her in front of others. Second time in 2 weeks.
My lady, this was in the parking lot. It did happen in front of somebody else, but it was the person busy taking off or getting into their vehicle. I actually walked out. She says, I completely understand your desperation to leave. And what she was doing is she thought she was helping getting to the exit. I didn't know she'd walk to the exit, so I stayed inside the venue and looked for her for some time. And that was why the argument actually arose. It wasn't about the fact, I understand that leaving she would get caught up, or I might get caught up. But it was the fact that I didn't know where she was. So when I had finished and tried to get out of there, I didn't know that she'd gone to the exit. So when I finally found her at the exit, I went to go get signal. I saw her there, and that's why the argument arose. So from the time of the exit to the car was probably a couple of 100 meters. We were having an argument, and it wasn't intended to be, it wasn't a loud argument. It says here, so you, especially not so loudly so that others could hear. It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough that Mr. Ferns heard it when we were leaving in the car. And I said to her, can we just wait till we get to the car to finish this?
You see, I hear what you're saying, but it has said her so much that she said to you, I'm a person too.
That's correct, my lady.
So it has said her so that she had to say, I'm a person too. Why don't you treat me like a person? Is that what you're saying?
That is what she's saying, my lady.
At least we know that she felt that you treated her very bad.
My lady, Reva was a person who always stood up for herself. If she believed I treated her badly, I think that I know for a fact she wouldn't have been with me. I didn't treat her badly. This was an argument that we had that lasted one message. The next message you can read, and it's Morning Aussie with a smiley face. When we did argue, it wasn't at all what we wanted, and I understand that she felt like I didn't treat her in the way that she should have been treated, not even like a person. She shouldn't have been treated anything less than a lady, and that was my fault if I had got into an argument with her.
You see, sir, you would always apologize. She would always send you a smiley face. In a 4-month relationship, when the relationship got stronger in January and February, we have that. Treat her badly, apologize, smiley face. It's not a relationship over years, sir. It's been 4 months, 2 months serious. That is what I'm getting at.
My lady, there were times that I felt that she wasn't treating me in the way that I would have wanted to be treated, like the introduction at that party. There were times that she took offense. So there were times, I think, when you get to know somebody, there are things that you do that the other person won't be happy with. And this is one of those things that you don't even need explaining for. I shouldn't have spoken to her in a way that didn't make her feel like a lady or didn't make her feel like a person. It was my fault. And
talking about faults and taking responsibility, let's deal with the Tasha's incident. Can you please explain to me why you pleaded not guilty?
What's the question?
What is the Tasha's incident, the discharge of the firearm in Tasha's? I'll get the charge just now. Why did you plead not guilty to that?
I didn't discharge the firearm, my lady. That's why I didn't plead. That's why I pleaded not guilty.
And is it still, and sitting where you're sitting now, you did not discharge that firearm?
That's correct, my lady.
But it cannot be. You had the firearm when the shot went off.
That's correct, my lady.
So is that not discharging?
I physically didn't discharge the firearm, my lady. The firearm went off when it was in my position, but I didn't have my finger, and I don't remember having my finger on the trigger.
No. See, there are two things. My lady, may I first say it's charge 3, count 3.
Yes.
My lady, I did not have my finger. I cannot remember having my finger on the trigger. Are you telling this court, tell us what, did you have your finger on trigger, yes or no?
No, my lady.
I see. I see. So, we have you in possession of the gun. A shot went off, but you didn't discharge the gun.
That's correct, my lady.
Who discharged?
The firearm discharged, my lady. I tried to make sure that the firearm was safe, and as a round came out of the breach, I realized that Mr. Fresco had passed me a firearm with one what's called one up with a round in the chamber. And at that point of me turning to ask him why he'd done that, the firearm went off, my lady.
Okay, good. We'll go through all that. So I must then accept that at your version the gun went off by itself. He gave you a gun, it went off by itself.
I don't recall how the firearm went off, my lady. I know that my finger was not on the trigger, and I know that when I checked to see if the firearm was safe, that it went off. That's...
Now, Mr. Pistorius, you see, and I want to tell you where I'm going. You just refuse to take responsibility for anything. If you accept what I'm saying now, I'm going to deal with the Tasha's. Okay, let's deal with it differently. One thing we have to say is that Mr. Fresco was unbelievably negligent in that restaurant.
I think we were both negligent, my lady. I shouldn't have taken a firearm under the table. It was the incorrect thing to do. And Mr. Fresco was negligent in giving it to me, my lady,
But
with a magazine in and a round up.
Without the gun firing, without the shot being fired, that would have been negligent in dealing with that gun.
It was a stupid thing to do, my lady. It was negligent.
Was negligent. Now, you asked for the gun.
That's correct, my lady.
That, whatever happened is that gun was discharged in a restaurant full of patrons. There were lots of people there.
That's correct, my lady.
There were even children at the table next to yours.
That's correct, my lady.
We also know that you had the gun when the shot went off.
That's correct, my lady.
What happened to the ejected bullet?
I think Mr. Lupus phoned either Darren Fresco or Mr. Lorena and told them that he had the projectile, that it was, he found it in the restaurant, and I'm not sure what happened.
You're wrong. Never happened. Is that what you think it happened? Why would you say that happened? Who told you that?
I don't understand Mr. Nall's question.
Who told
sorry.
you that Lupus phoned?
It was either Mr. Fresco or Mr. Lorena, my lady.
Why would they phone Lorena?
Because they're friends, my lady. Mr. Lupus is friends with Mr. Lorena, and Mr. Lupus and Mrs. Lupus are friends with Darren Fresco.
So, you're now saying that Lupus phoned them later, he found the ejected cartridge and he gave it back to them.
I don't know if he phoned them later, my lady, but he found I didn't say he found the cartridge, I said he found the projectile, and he gave the projectile to one of them, my lady.
What happened to the cartridge, I'm asking? One was ejected. What happened to that cartridge?
I have no idea, my lady.
You had it.
I don't remember that at all, my lady.
Mr. Pistorius, I'm going to go through the scene. You're the man with unbelievable eye for detail, and you can remember fine detail. Why can't you remember what happened to the projectile, the cartridge that was ejected?
Are we speaking about the round that was ejected when I made the
Yes.
firearm safe?
Yes.
It fell onto the seat, my lady.
And then?
I'm not sure. I must have given it back to Mr. Fresco at some point. I don't recall, my lady.
Now, why, when I just asked you, said, I cannot remember, and then you remember all of a sudden why?
My lady, Mr. Nall was referring to a cartridge, not a bullet. A cartridge is usually what a bullet's called after the projectile's been discharged. So he said cartridge, so I thought the cartridge from the round that went off. That's what I understood from his question.
You're right, I'm wrong. So the bullet thing, you don't know what happened to it.
No, the bullet fell onto the chair.
And you took it.
I gave it to Mr. Fresco
When?
later. I'm not sure, my lady. I don't remember, but I remember as it fell out onto the chair, I saw it, and I turned to Mr. Fresco asking him why he'd given me a firearm with a round up, and or in the process of saying that, another round went off. When I gave him his firearm back under the table, I must have taken the bullet. I wouldn't have just left it there, and I would have given it back to him. That's what I don't remember giving it to him, but that's what I can think must have happened.
You know, why did you want to see this particular firearm?
I was, as I said in my evidence in chief, my lady, I was looking at purchasing the same type of firearm.
That was now after all the firearms you bought from Mr. Rens.
That's correct, my lady.
So you wanted more?
Yes, my lady. I'd applied for a collector's license. I think you can have up to more than 30 firearms in a collector's. To have and obtain a collection, you can't just buy one firearm. You have to buy two of the same sort or more. So, the firearm that I had bought, that I'd always had with me, was a very heavy firearm, and the firearm that Mr. Fresco had was made out of a different material that was a lot lighter. It wasn't nearly as... It had a carrying capacity which was a lot less. It didn't take as many bullets, and it was a lot smaller, so it was a lot easier to carry. So
why did you want to see it?
I wanted to see it so that there was a slide. Some of the model that firearm manufacturer makes some of the firearms with a slide on the front, which you can attach a flashlight to. I had a flashlight for when I was overseas. I was at a shop and they sold a flashlight for this firearm that I knew was a lot cheaper overseas, so I bought the flashlight, and I wanted to see if Mr. Fresco, the models are all in a number sequence, and I wanted to see if that firearm had a slide for this attachment, as I wanted to phone Mr. Rens and place an order for a model of sorts from that manufacturer that made this firearm from a lighter material.
But it's clear that you know a lot about firearms and a lot about that particular Glock.
I don't know much about that particular Glock, my lady. I've never owned a Glock. I know a fair deal of firearms. I grew up in a family where both my parents carried firearms.
Now, you've heard Mr. Fresco and Captain Mangena testify about the safety mechanism on the Glock.
I have, my lady.
And Captain Mangena's evidence was that it's impossible for that gun to discharge without somebody's finger on the trigger.
I understand that, my lady.
I
understand that, my lady. That's what I've heard.
And Mr. Roux never questioned him about what he said.
I don't remember if Mr. Roux did or didn't, but if Mr. Null puts that to me, then I accept that, my lady.
Then will you not accept that your finger was on the trigger because that gun cannot discharge if your finger wasn't on the trigger?
I cannot, my lady.
Say again?
I said I cannot, my lady.
Why not? You had the gun, it discharged. Captain Mangena said it's impossible to discharge. Why don't you want to say it?
Because my finger was not on the trigger, my lady.
Why wasn't that put to Captain Mangena, who was an expert, to say? Captain Mangena said, it's impossible for that gun to fire without pulling the trigger. The trigger safety as well as the trigger. Why wasn't he cross-examined about that?
I'm not sure, my lady.
You see, I get an idea that... before I get the ideas. It has always been your version that your finger wasn't on the trigger.
That's correct, my lady.
You told Mr. Roux that.
That's correct, my lady.
He made a mistake by not cross-examining Captain Mangena about it.
I don't know if he made a mistake or not, my lady. I don't know if what he's wanted to ask Mr. Mangena, I'm sure that he's covered everything that he's wanted to ask. I'm not sure on what questions Mr. Roux or Mr. Aldridge asks. They don't read their questions out to me, and I'm not sure if he did or didn't.
Let's take it slowly. If Mr. Roux did not put to Captain Mangena that it's possible for that gun to be fired without putting the trigger, he made a mistake because your finger was never on the trigger.
I don't know if that's a mistake or not, my lady.
It
If you
must
didn't
be.
put it to him, you didn't put it to him, my lady.
But why would he not if that's your version?
I don't know, my lady. Mr. Rue. I'm not sure why he didn't put it to him, my lady.
You see, we'll get into this quite a lot if we carry on, that you will blame anybody but yourself.
I don't agree, my lady.
Now you blame counsel. Mr. Rue, I know him, will not make those mistakes.
I didn't blame Mr. Rue, my lady.
You did.
I said I'm not sure what questions he's asked. I don't even remember him speaking, or many of the questions he put to Mr. Mangena. So,
It's not that easy, and I will belabor this point. You see, he's not the only person in court. You have a whole team. Yesterday he told us about the team. There's a team in court. Everybody's listening to questions that Mr. Rue asks. Am I right?
that's correct, my lady, but
So everybody made a mistake.
it's not what I said, my lady.
It must be, because he was never challenged. Somebody made a mistake.
If Mr. Rue didn't put that question to Mr. Mangena, my lady, then I'm sure he's got a good reason for not doing so, my
No,
lady.
there cannot be a good reason. The good reason is, it was never your version. You never gave it to your legal team that my finger wasn't on it.
That's incorrect, my lady.
Now, explain. You see, Mr. Pistorius, you're blaming everybody. You won't take responsibility. That gun cannot fire if you don't pull the trigger. Who pulled that trigger?
I didn't pull the trigger, my lady.
Who did?
I don't know, my lady. I didn't pull the trigger.
Let's look at it. You had it in your hand. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
You ejected the one bullet.
That's correct, my lady.
Nobody else touched that gun,
That's correct, my lady.
but a shot went off.
That's correct, my lady.
If that firearm is incapable of firing a shot without somebody pulling the trigger, who pulled the trigger?
I'm not sure, my lady. What I'm saying is that I didn't have my finger on the trigger.
No, you can't say that. I'm not sure. Let us think who could have done that. Was it the person sitting next to you?
I don't think it would have been possible for anybody sitting at the table to have, or I don't think it would have been a possibility that someone would have reached under the table and pulled the trigger whilst the firearm was in my possession, my lady.
You see, Mr. Pistorius, this is amazing. Really, you're amazing. You agree with Captain Mangena, that gun cannot fire if somebody doesn't pull the trigger.
I don't know how that firearm works, my lady. I cannot-
Okay, now, nobody challenged Mr. Mangena, so we have to accept it, and the court will accept his evidence. If the court accepts his evidence, you know for a fact, you're not unsure, you know for a fact your finger wasn't on that trigger.
That's correct, my lady.
We know for a fact that that a shot was discharged.
That's correct.
That's
my lady.
amazing. It cannot happen.
What I'm saying, my lady, is the firearm went off whilst it was in my possession. I take responsibility for the firearm going off when it was in my possession. But I can't say my finger was on the trigger when it wasn't on the trigger.
No,
my lady.
you see, no, it's not that easy, Mr. Pistorius. It cannot be that easy. It cannot be. Something must have happened with that gun, and you fired a shot. You had your finger on that trigger.
As I said, my lady, I didn't have my finger on the trigger of that firearm.
But you cannot explain how the shot was discharged.
I cannot, my lady.
But in your evidence, you said, what did you say to Mr. Lupus?
When Mr. Lupus came to the table, Mr. Fresco apologized. He said that the firearm had caught on his pants. I said to Mr. Lupus that it was my fault. I said, I'm sorry, and I'll pay for any damages. That's what I said to Mr. Lupus. When I paid the bill once we got up to leave, I paid, and I said to him again, Mr. Lupus, I'm sorry for what's happened. It's my fault. I take the blame for it. I pay for the damages. I completely took the blame for it.
Well,
But what
nobody can remember that. Nobody at that table remembers that you took the blame, and neither can Mr. Lupus. You know that.
That's what happened, my lady. I apologized and I paid the bill, and I said to Mr. Lupus that I'd pay for any damages.
This is such an amazing incident. You never touched the trigger, the gun went off. You took the blame, you took responsibility, but nobody can remember. So everything is against you. How can that be?
I understand if everything's against me, my lady. I can just tell you what happened. I apologized. Mr. Fresco carried on going on about how the gun caught on his pants. All I said to Mr. Lupus was that it was my fault, and I'm very sorry. Please may I pay for the damages? And I apologized. When I left, I said it again to him.
Why was it
If I remember when Mr. Lorena testified, I don't have a recollection, ma'am, of what they testified to, but I know what I said, and I said that I was sorry for what had happened, that it was my fault. I didn't elaborate on why it was my fault, and I offered to pay for the damages in the restaurant.
Now, so after this event, it must have bothered you that that gun went off on its own.
Yes, it did bother me, my lady.
And you discussed it with hundreds of people.
It didn't bother me that the gun went off by its own. It bothered me in its entirety that the gun went off in a restaurant and that the gun was in my possession when it went off. I didn't discuss it with anyone.
But you see,
I discussed it with Reva over text. And I must have chatted to her about it later that night or later that day.
did you talk to anybody else about that incident?
I don't recall talking to anybody
Did
else.
you discuss it with Mr. Renz?
I don't recall discussing it with Mr. Rentz, my lady.
If you discussed it with Mr. Renz, you would have remembered.
I don't know if I discussed it with Mr. Rentz, my lady.
If you discussed it with him, you would have remembered. He owns a gun shop.
If I discussed it with Mr. Rentz and I remembered, then I'd say that I remember discussing it with Mr. Rentz, but I can't say I remember or wouldn't remember. I don't remember discussing it with Mr.
Did you
Rentz.
discuss it with any other gun enthusiast that you can remember?
Not to my recollection, my lady.
Did it bother you that that gun went off on its own?
It bothered me that the firearm went off in my possession, my
No,
lady.
but
I don't think I ever thought of it as the gun going off without me pulling the trigger.
You must have.
But it bothered me that I was stupid to take a firearm from someone who I thought would have made the firearm safe. And in the process of double checking that the firearm was safe, it bothered me that the firearm went off, that somebody could have got hurt. That's what bothered me, my lady.
Everything is bothering you except the gun. Except the miracle that the gun went off without somebody touching the trigger. That never bothered you. You're a gun enthusiast. You wanted to buy a Glock. Did it bother you that that gun went off on its own?
Yes, it did, my lady.
Now you say. First you said you didn't. So it bothered you that that gun went off on its own.
My lady, the whole situation bothered me. I cannot say one thing bothered me in particular. The incident bothered me. Of course it bothered me that the firearm was discharged when it was in my possession. I don't have much else to add to that. I can't say that. I can say it went off in my possession. I can say I was responsible for the firearm when the round went off.
You see, I'm not going to move away so easily from this. I know you want to say, I'm responsible, please move away, but there's something deeper here. And that is, I don't understand, and neither would the court in my argument, that if you presented with a set of facts that pointed you having discharged that firearm, you're not willing to accept that. That is troubling.
Well, lady, I can understand the facts. I agree with the facts that the firearm, if it was put to the court, cannot discharge without a finger being on the trigger. I can understand that and I accept that. I understand that the firearm was in my possession when the round was discharged. What I cannot say is that my finger was on the trigger.
Let us help you. Can you say, perhaps my finger was on the trigger?
No, I cannot, my
Yeah,
lady. My
you see-
finger was not on the trigger.
That is what's bothering me. You won't even concede that perhaps it was on the trigger.
I cannot concede that because it wasn't a perhaps, so I know that my finger was not on the trigger, my lady.
Now, did you... Why were you upset with Fresco? What particularly? In him handing over the gun to you?
No, him handing me a firearm that had a magazine in it and that had a round in the chamber, my lady.
Yes. So there are two things. It had a round in the chamber and had a magazine in it.
That's correct, my lady.
When you received the gun, you wanted to check if the gun was safe.
I wanted to have a look at the firearm, my lady, but I didn't want to check. When I took the firearm, I didn't want to take it to make sure it was safe. I wanted to take it so I could look at it.
Yes.
But
when
before I
you
did that, I made sure that it was safe.
No, that's fine. I agree with that. When you received it, you wanted to make sure that it was safe. You cocked it.
That's correct, my lady.
A round came out.
I didn't cock the gun, but I made the I was in my.
Yes, please think.
I was making the firearm safe checking that there wasn't a round in the chamber. I didn't know that there was a magazine in the firearm, so when I released a round out of the chamber, what I thought was making the firearm safe must have put another round into the chamber.
But you see, if you how you didn't cock the firearm.
My lady, in the process of making the firearm safe, you have to take the slide back to
Yes.
check if the bullet comes out. So my intention wasn't to cock the firearm, but if there was a magazine in the firearm like there was, then it would have cocked the firearm by putting another one
Yeah.
in automatically. But
But
if I
if-
knew there was a magazine in, my lady, I wouldn't have made the firearm safe because it would have just carried on till the magazine was empty. I would have rather just taken the magazine out.
Now, in any safety procedures, the first thing you would check for is if there's a magazine in it.
That's correct, my lady.
You didn't.
I did not, my lady.
But we agree on one thing. If you wanted to make it safe, first step would have been check for the magazine.
That's correct, my lady.
Then check the slide if there's a round in the slide.
That's correct, my lady.
You did it the other way around. You first checked if there was a round in the slide, and there was.
That's correct, my lady.
Now, the next thing you would do is to check if there's a magazine in it.
I would have usually checked. I've never passed somebody a firearm with a magazine or a round in the firearm, my lady. I've trained to make a firearm safe and put it down pass it to somebody or put it down on a surface. I didn't do that day. I took the firearm and I didn't think that there would even be a round in the chamber. I should have checked first if there was a magazine in the firearm. I didn't do that. It was my mistake. It was stupid on my behalf, reckless on my behalf. When I checked that the chamber was safe, a round came out. I didn't think for one moment I wouldn't have done that if I thought there was a magazine in the gun. It wouldn't have made sense. And at that moment, a round was discharged.
You see, you now gave a version again, a full version, in fact. Do you know what I asked you?
Mr. Nell asked me if I then checked if I took the magazine out.
And what is the answer to that? Because you haven't. Did you then check? First, you checked there was a round in the chamber.
I did reply to Mr. Nell's
You
question,
didn't?
my lady. I
Did
said
you?
I didn't check that. I said
why
usually
not?
I would have.
Why not?
As I said, my lady, it was stupid of me. I didn't think Mr. Fresco would give me a firearm with a magazine and a round in it.
But now you've established that there was a round. Now you know Mr. Fresco's stupid. He gave me a gun with a round in. So why not do the next thing and check the magazine?
I should have done that, my
You
lady.
didn't.
No, I didn't.
You just pulled the trigger.
I didn't pull the trigger. I didn't have time to think, my lady. At that point when the bullet came out, the firearm went off.
You see, we'll get lots of that today as well. I didn't have time to think. We had that yesterday as well. So that is one of your defenses. I didn't have time to think. I'm a gun enthusiast. I didn't have time to think. Why not?
My lady, being a gun enthusiast has nothing to do with the time. I, at that point, checked that the firearm was safe. And at that point, within a second, the firearm went off. It wasn't that I had time to turn the firearm over and eject the magazine. If the time is that, then the time is that. I can't change it.
We'll get to the rest of this just after tea, my lady, if that's perhaps an opportune moment to take a tea break.
We'll take our tea adjournment.
Got it off, right?